Hello guys, Furball the Hammy here again. Today I'm here to finally bring about the tier list that everyone has been asking for on every single weapon in Hypixel Skyblock. I will be rating weapons into certain tiers, namely D tier, C tier, B tier, A tier, and S tier. And here's the breakdown for the tier list. D tier weapons in this category are just really bad, and they aren't even worth for the early game use. Just don't craft them. And honestly, I think D tier items are just content fodders, whereby like I don't even know why they exist, and like they just waste space in the game, honestly. C tier weapons. Weapons in this category are great for early game use and may seem some little use in the mid game, but the weapons in this category are mainly for new players only. B tier. Weapons in this category are great for mid game use and may see use as late game weapons. Some items in this category may also be late game weapons, but are here due to their high cost to average power ratio. Basically, they cost too much to be worth crafting, and like, yes, they can be end game weapons, they just aren't that worth the craft, so that's why some of those belong in B tier. A tier. Weapons in this category are great endgame weapons and have excellent cost to power ratio, but are still falling short as compared to weapons above this tier. Some weapons are not above the A tier due to the lack of universal usage against all mobs. An example of this would be the Reaper Falchion, whereby it decimates zombies and it does over 100,000 damage per hit. It is wonderful, but it doesn't have universal use, so it falls into the A tier instead of going up to the S tier. And last but not least, the S tier. S tier items are the strongest weapons in the game and are excellent for endgame use as well as for future dungeon preparation. So, before I get started with the video, after you guys hearing every single tier, I will now rank the items, but before we do that, do consider to subscribe and to like the video in order to be notified whenever new content that I create similar to another tier list like this, or another weapon review, armor review, or even another discussion essay that I have planned to discuss with you guys and to ask for your opinions about problems in Hypixel Skyblock. Be sure to subscribe as well as to hit the like button in order to be informed when my new content comes out. And also, don't forget to join my Discord server because I have weekly giveaways on them. So yeah, before I bore you with this advertisement, let's move on to the tier list that I have created for you guys. So first and foremost, in the D tier, what weapons exist in the D tier? Sad to say, these are the disappointing weapons. Spider Sword and Sword, Wither Bow, Prismarine Bow, Fancy Sword, Prismarine Blade, Ink Wand, Savannah Bow, and last but not least, the Slime Bow. So, I don't want to bore you guys with me flaming and ranting over 10 minutes for these garbage weapons. So yeah, I will go through them as quickly as possible as to why I put them here. For the Spider Sword, you don't need it as a beginner. You would either be grinding in the deep caverns, or you will be grinding on your island chopping pumpkins or something like that. You wouldn't be going to be killing tarantula brute fathers, you wouldn't be killing spiders at all. There's just no reason for it. It's garbage. And Sword, garbage. It even got nerfed from rare to uncommon rarity. It is as good as a normal diamond sword. You wouldn't be using the end sword in the end at all. It's just so bad, honestly. With a bow, just no, okay? Get an endstone bow or an ender bow instead. For the Prismarine Bow, I love doing 300% extra damage against only squids, elder guardians, and guardians. And wait, it only has plus 50 damage? That plus 300% damage isn't going to do anything at all. Next, Fancy Sword. It's a scam. That is all I'm gonna say. You're better off crafting and enchanting your own golden sword. I don't know why you even need one. Moving on, Prismarine Blade. Okay, plus 200% damage in water. That's kind of cool, but it has garbage stats, and you wouldn't need this as a beginner. Like, you wouldn't be fishing against high-level fishing mobs, and even then, you wouldn't need to fight them with a Prismarine Blade even in the end game. You're better off using an aspect of the dragons or something like that. Next, the Ink Wand. The Ink Wand it just costs way too much. It gives absolutely nothing. Its ability blinds stuff that are hit by its ability, but mobs aren't even affected by blindness. I don't even know why it exists. Garbage. Savannah Bow. Just no. Okay, No one's going to grind the acacia wood collection just to get a bow that does 2 times the damage of a normal vanilla bow in Hypixel Skyblock. Next, slime bow. You know what? Just why? Why would you want 7.5 stacks of enchanted slime balls just to craft a weapon that is a lot worse than Runan's bow? It has worse stats than Runan's, worse stats than even Hurricane, and all it does to compensate for those garbage stats is times 5 damage against slimes and magma cubes. You know what, Hypixel Skyblock? Your balancing is on point. I am so done with this. So yeah, moving on to C tier. Items in the C tier for early game use, and I will repeat them once again. The weapons in C tier are the Hunter Knife, Cleaver, Frozen Scythe, Undead Sword, Flaming Sword, Ember Rod, Rogue Sword, Silver Fang, Golem Sword, Magma Bow, Tactician's Sword, and last but not least, the Ender Bow. So if you guys want to hear my justification for it, continue listening. I put the Hunter Knife in the C tier because it's a good weapon for the early game, and the plus 40 speed it gives makes it a good replacement for early game players to get them walk from place to place a lot quicker, since they don't have access to the grappling hook or even the aspect of the end so early on. So plus 40 speed, you know, it's kind of useful, makes you go from place to place faster, so that's kind of cool. It's good but hard to get for an early game player, but I guess you can still get your hands on it. You just have to do the quest. Cleaver. You know what, the Cleaver used to be a good weapon, especially for early game and even sometimes mid game, back in the old days where lapis armor was good. So yeah, the Cleaver basically it's fine, it's a good all-rounder early game weapon, but it has been power creeped by other early game weapons being buffed, but still it's decent. Next, Frozen Scythe. You know what, I want to pick a bone with all of these garbage expensive weapons. You know what, you know how much the Frozen Scythe costs to craft just from the NPC alone? It costs 1.6 million coins just to buy the Frozen Scythe from the NPC. Yes, 1.6 million coins. And all it does is plus 80 damage, and it does a base of 100 damage on its ability. Yeah, so even if high magic damage or plus 400% extra damage, you do 500 damage per ability of the use of the Scythe, it's still bad. The only reason as to why I didn't give the Frozen Scythe a D tier rating is because it has slowness, which is the only redeeming effect. Don't craft this expensive garbage. Next, Undead Sword. Undead Sword is a great early game weapon for double damage, but with the early game moving further and further away from needing to explore the deep caverns, but rather to spend time on your island to build pumpkin farms, the Undead Sword is losing relevance because you only want to use the Undead Sword in the deep caverns. So since you wouldn't be going there as much, it's just not that good. But it's still a wonderful early game weapon if you want to explore the deep caverns and you want to grind them instead of grinding pumpkins. Next, Flaming Sword. The Flaming Sword, I didn't even know this sword existed by the way. It got a 20 strength buff in Hypixel Skyblock 0.7.5 balance update, and it makes it a universal good early game weapon because now it has base 50 damage and base 20 strength, which is actually pretty decent for something that's that costs almost nothing in Hypixel Skyblock. The way to get a Flaming Sword is actually quite interesting. You just have to kill the pigmen in the Blazing Fortress, or you know, you can just buy it from someone. I'm pretty sure no one will even sell it to you because they will just give it to you for free. It is not very good for endgame purposes, but at least it serves early game use now. I like it. The Ember Rod. The Ember Rod is actually a very powerful early game weapon. It can be used as a mid game weapon, it can, but it's just not that good even as a mid game weapon. And furthermore, the Ember Rod costs slightly more than a Silver Fang, which is the best early game weapon right now. It costs around 20 to 30,000 more coins than a Silver Fang. It does around the same damage of a Silver Fang. You are better off just using a Silver Fang instead. But if you want an Ember Rod because it's cool, go ahead. It's quite good for early game if you are willing to shell out a few extra 1,000 coins. Next, the Rogue Sword. You know what? The Rogue Sword used to be a good utility weapon, but it got nerfed, so it doesn't give as much speed as it used to. And with that, that's why I put it down here, because back in the days, you could use the Rogue Sword to actually get 400% speed extremely easily. But now that ability is like nerfed, so the Rogue Sword isn't that useful now, so I put it here. The Silver Fang. The Silver Fang is a great early game weapon. I think everyone has praised it enough. You can kill almost everything in the deep caverns with just sharpness and first strike. Nothing else. You only need those two enchants and you are done with early game. You can pretty much kill anything in the early game with the Silver Fang. It only costs 8,000 to 10,000 coins. In fact, I'm pretty sure it costs a lot cheaper now. Moving on to Golem Sword. You know what? The Golem Sword is actually a very good early game weapon. It's overpowered, in fact, for early game use. And it's okay-ish use for mid game, but it costs way too much. It costs 5 stacks of enchanted iron. It costs a lot more than its brother, the aspect of the end. And it's even slightly worse than the aspect of the end. So it's just not that good. Magma Bow. You know what? I'm so done with balance now. Just why? Just don't get a Magma Bow. It costs a lot, but you are getting something worse than a Rudans. Just stop putting your Magma minions down the grind for the Magma Bow and grind the Rudans Bow instead. I don't care whatever good reason you have, it's just not worth it. Tactician Sword. The Tactician Sword is actually a very good early game weapon if you have a lot of the combat collection unlocked. You can actually get base plus 200 damage with the Tacticians when you have every single combat collection unlocked to a high enough level. So it's actually a pretty broken early game weapon. But on top of that, the Tactician Sword is good for early game use as well as for end game use. In the future, when you can buy a Wood Singularity and you have saved enough coins, you can upgrade a Tactician Sword to an end game Tactician Sword with Wood Singularity. So yeah, it is a good investment for both early game and even late game. Next, last but not least, the Ender Bow. The Ender Bow is cheap to craft. It's a good bow for early game use and packs a free Ender Pearl every 60 seconds. I think it's a good early game bow unlike the Savannah Bow. Moving on to the C tier. Items in the C tier are Mosquito Bow, Scorpion Bow, Hurricane Bow, Edible Mace, Emerald Blade, Shaman Sword, Zombie Sword, Revenant Falchion, and Stone Sword, Recluse Fang, Ornate Zombie Sword, and Stone Bow, Raider's Axe, and last but not least, the aspect of the end. So I would try to speed my way through to explain to you guys as to why I put these weapons here. First and foremost, the Mosquito Bow is here because it costs 20 to 30 times more than a Rudans, and it does less damage than a Rudans Bow. Like, okay, it can be used as endgame purpose, but it costs way too much. It's just not worth it. Scorpion Bow, you know what? Same problem with the Mosquito Bow. It costs way too much, doesn't have enough power. At least the Scorpion Bow can be used in the arena to kill people really quickly, because it has this bug in the arena. I'm not sure whether it's a bug or like an intentional content ability of the Scorpion Bow, but yeah, it has use in the arena. It's pretty overpowered in the arena, but other than that, it needs a buff, both the Scorpion and the Mosquito Bow, in order to see play in the future. Hurricane Bow, you know, you are better saving the enchanted bones to craft a Runan's Bow. You don't need a Hurricane Bow. After the Hurricane Bow got nerfed so that its surrounding 4 arrows can't critical hit stuff, it's just not that good now. It's not in the meta right now and it's just not that good. But that being said, if you want to craft it, you can craft it, but you will likely regret your decisions because you are better off using the enchanted bones to craft a Runan's. Next, Edible Mace. I think the Edible Mace is a pretty bad weapon, but the reason why I think it's here is because its ability actually makes your next weapon hit reduce the damage of the... So if, let's say you use the ability of the Edible Mace, and then you hit the Edible Mace on another animal, it will reduce the damage that animal can do to you by 35% damage. So I feel that the Edible Mace will be quite good in the future if there's an animal dungeon or even tier 6 Savan. I would actually like to see the Edible Mace being used in tier 6 Savan. So I have high hopes that it has future content to make use of it, and that's why I put it in the C tier. Emerald Blade. It is relatively expensive to craft for a mid-game weapon. It's just not that good even for mid-game use, but at least if you choose to play with this weapon and craft it, it will at least be useful in the Romero and Juliet quest. So that's why I put it here. Next, Shaman Sword. Shaman Sword is decent for early game use and it's also decent for wolves, but it just doesn't do good at everything else. It works at massive armor, but even then, the damage is still lacking. But it's really cheap to craft and it's a cheap but weak mid-game weapon. Moving on, Zombie Sword. Zombie Sword is on the pricey side and it just doesn't have that much power to begin with. Its ability change made it worse, but its base stats are still okay for mid-game use, and at least it can heal in a pinch, so I think it's okay. Revenant Falchion. The Revenant Falchion is expensive also, although not as expensive as the Zombie Sword, and it's pretty powerful for zombies and decent enough for generic mid-game and early game use, so you can consider using a Revenant Falchion. You also might want to craft the Revenant Falchion in preparation for crafting the Reaper Falchion in the near future when you get the materials for it, so yeah. Next, the Endstone Sword. You know what, I only have praises for this bow. It is a very cheap bow which you can buy from the auction house. It only costs like 10,000 coins. There's no demand for it, but it's quite good for mid-game use. It does slightly, the Endstone bow is actually quite good. It actually allows you to kill most mobs you need to kill in the mid-game within one hit. It's a lot cheaper than a Hurricane bow, and it does almost whatever a Hurricane bow can do. So you might as well just get the Endstone bow. And the Endstone bow is cheap, it's powerful for mid-game use, and it's just wonderful. Anyways, if you see a dragon in the sky, you just need to shoot it once to get 3 frags. It doesn't really matter whether you use a Hurricane bow or Endstone bow, and you wouldn't be getting first with either Endstone bow or Hurricane bow, so you might as well just use an Endstone bow, right? It's cheaper and just better. The Endstone Sword. The Endstone Sword is cheap to craft in general with just minions. It does slightly more damage in an aspect of the end. It's a decent mid-game weapon, but it's overshadowed by the utility of the aspect of the end. And the Radius Axe does more damage than the Endstone Sword, and it also gives extra coins. So I don't know why you want to craft it, but it's fine if you want to at least. The Recluse Fang. The Recluse Fang is a really cheap mid-game weapon if you manage to snipe a Spider Catalyst on the auction house for 30,000 or 50,000 coins, which is possible during off-peak hours. It is quite good if you want to kill Tarantulas before you get an aspect of the dragons, and it is also a useful investment early on if you cannot craft a Scorpion Foil with Wood Singularity. So it is good for killing Tarantula Broodfathers if you want to as a mid-game player. I guess you can. But yeah, moving on, Ornate Zombie Sword. For mid-game, its base stats are actually pretty strong, and it also has an epic reforge, so that adds to its base stats. Its healing ability is also upgraded and slightly more impactful than a Zombie Sword. However, it is once again very costly to craft, but it probably will be useful in the future for dungeons because extra healing is always useful. So yeah, consider crafting it if you want it and you like healing. Radius Axe. Radius Axe does more damage than an aspect of the end, gives a lot of coins when used as a main damage weapon, and it only costs 125,000 coins from the merchant. It is a wonderful mid-game weapon which helps you generate a lot of coins. It doesn't have the utility of the aspect of the end, but it has more damage and it gives you more coins. So that's why I think it's a good mid-game weapon to use with the aspect of the end. Aspect of the End is a very cheap weapon, great mid-game damage, great versatility with its ability, and you will still be using the Aspect of the End even up to the mid-game, end-game, and even late-game. The ability is just amazing, and that's why it tops the C tier in my opinion. It is by far the best weapon in the C tier in my opinion. Moving on to B tier. So items in the B tier are listed as Weird Tuba, Radiant Orb, Scorpion Foil, Leaping Sword, Pooch Sword, and the Silk Edge Sword. First and foremost, the Weird Tuba is quite decent. I mean, for 150 mana for just 30 strength and 30 speed, it is pretty costly on the mana side, but if you are the type that loves running Wise Reforgers, 150 mana isn't too bad. It is actually an okay craft for you, but you can craft the Weird Tuba if you have nothing else to craft, but yeah, don't craft it, it's just not that good. But the reason why I put it in the B tier is because its ability helps everyone around you. It gives everyone around you 30 strength and 30 speed, which will make it useful in dungeons. So it is a good investment. Not right now, but in the future it may see a lot of use. Radiant Orb. It's cheap, it's good even for mid-game players and even for late-game players and even for end-game players. You know what? You can kill any tier 4 you want with just a Radiant Orb. You don't need a Mana Flux Orb, you don't need an Overflux Orb. A Radiant Orb just does it well enough if you are geared enough. It's just good, it's cheap, gives enough power. Scorpion Foil. You know, the Scorpion Foil is okay. It's not amazing. with the Wood Singularity, it does more base damage as compared to a 50mm Midas against spiders. It's not as amazing as a Reaper Falchion is towards zombies, but it's still good but it is still good if you can put a Wood Singularity on it. It is good for killing spiders, but that's it. The Leaping Sword. You know what? The Leaping Sword is expensive to craft, but if you need a pinch of extra damage to kill zealots, it's fine to craft it. But you can get a Thick Tacticians or a Tactician Sword and Wood Singularity for just slightly more extra damage. Like, a Thick Tactician Sword does more damage than a Leaping Sword, and it only costs like what, 1 million more coins. It's not that good to get a Leaping Sword. You might as well just get a Tactician Sword, honestly. Next, the Pooch Sword. The Pooch Sword is good against good against wolves, but the upgrade from Shaman to Pooch didn't do much on the Pooch Sword for generic use. It just gave it plus 20 damage and a change in rarity. It's still amazing against wolves, don't get me wrong, but it still doesn't kill wolves as amazing as how quickly a Reaper Falchion can kill zombies. So that's why it is under the tier of Reaper Falchion and is only in the B tier. Last but not least, Silk Edge. You know what? I love the Silk Edge, and it's somewhat biased, and maybe that's why it's in the B tier for me. The Silk Edge is an okay late game weapon. It's actually an okay end game weapon if you want to use it. It's not so much for end game, but you can use it if you want to. Due to its high cost, roughly around 6 million coins from buying from the merchant, you can buy an aspect of the dragons with that, by the way. You're better off buying a Thick Tacticians for cheaper than the Silk Edge, and the Tactician Sword that is with Wood Singularity is not only cheaper, it also does slightly more damage. However, the Silk Edge may see an edge in the competition if magic damage gets added, because the ability of the Silk Edge Sword gives base magic damage of 400, which can pack a punch with if you intend to put it with other high magic damage abilities. For example, if you hold Wise Dragon Armor, you have high base magic damage, and that may actually make Silk Edge see some use, because its ability to stun is actually really powerful in my opinion. So yeah, moving on to the A tier. The A tier weapons are the Explosive Bow, Reaper Falchion, Mana Flux Power Orb, Pigman Sword, Thick Tacticians, and how could I forget, Aspect of the Dragons. So items in the A tier are just great for endgame use, but they may have some limited capabilities because they don't have the universal use. So Explosive Bow. Explosive Bow is great for grinding zealots, and it makes cool explosions. I'll be extremely honest with you. I still use the Explosive Bow over my Runan's Bow because it's a lot cooler. But on top of the cosmetic purposes, the Explosive Bow does well when grinding slayers, especially in the spider den. Whenever there are a lot of walls, there are a lot of cobweb everywhere, the Explosive Bow is able to hit through these walls and kill the spiders behind it because it explodes. So yeah, it makes grinding slayers a bit easier, but that's up to personal preference at the end of the day. You can still use a Runans, and the Runans is still universally better than the Explosive Bow. Reaper Falchion. Reaper Falchion is a wonderful weapon, does 100,000 damage against zombies, has an extra minus 20% damage from zombies like the Pooch Sword, and even has a base plus 200 intelligence to speed up mana regeneration. However, its damage stats are weak for universal use in the endgame outside of killing zombies. And for an endgame weapon requiring 9 zombie hearts that isn't even that good for users outside of zombies, it is pretty expensive for just a one-trick pony weapon. But it's still good for zombies. It is still better than the Pooch Sword and as well as the Scorpion Foil. The Reaper Falchion does its job to kill zombies a lot better than the Pooch Sword kills wolves and the Scorpion Foil kills spiders. So that's why it's above those weapons. It's still a one-trick pony, but it's worth crafting. The Mana Flux Power Orb is by far the most worthy upgrade out of the 3 orbs. It does an amazing job at healing, gives extra mana regen and even some strength. What's there not to like about it? Everyone likes having another player putting a Mana Flux orb for them, let's be honest. Pigman Sword, great weapon, amazing old school weapon that was released on day 1 and is still amazing to this date. Although it's slightly overshadowed in the aspect of the dragons, its ability got a relative buff. It gives you plus 50 defense when you use the ability, which is a good defensive skill. And on top of that, with magic damage being added soon, the pigman's ability might actually turn out to be better than the aspect of the dragons. So I look forward to seeing magic damage to bring the pigman sword up to even greater heights. So, moving on, the Thick Tactician's Sword. Thick Tacticians is a cheap, budget, but surprisingly good weapon. It's amazing and can kill pretty much anything a pigman or even an aspect of the dragons can kill, but for a cheaper cost. But it takes more time, of course. I mean, it does less damage, but it can kill whatever they can kill, so it's fine. It has an amazing budget game option. It is amazing budget and game options. Just end it right there. Everyone has sung enough praise for it, and I don't need to repeat that to your ears. So, Aspect of the Dragons. Aspect of the Dragons is a cheaper pigman sword. It does slightly more damage than a pigman sword. Its ability, Dragon's Rage, makes it good in a pinch to save your life from a red mini boss like an alpha or even a mutant tarantula that is going to kill you, because its ability does massive knockback, which can save you in a pinch, which would get even better with the introduction of magic damage. You know what's funny, like the higher we go, the less I actually have to talk for these weapons. And with that, we are done with the A tier. Moving on to the S tier. S tier items are Runan's Bow, Reaper's Scythe, Overflux Power Orb, and how could I forget the 50 million Midas. So yeah, Runan's Bow. Runan's Bow, cheap to craft, best bow in the game, triple the arrows, triple the fun. Do I need to say more? Everyone has been praising it since day one. Reaper's Scythe. Hands down, the coolest weapon. The highest synergy of any weapon can ever get. It works with any weapon of choice and will boost it by a maximum of plus 150% damage with all 5 zombies on the battlefield, giving you extra lifesteal from all 5 zombies, effectively healing you by 1.8% of total damage dealt when you include yourself and the zombies, and even up to 2.4% of total damage if you have lifesteal 4 with your zombies. It has great synergy with almost anything in the game and is decent on its own. It costs a lot, but that's the price to pay for such a weapon that just boosts any weapon you want to have to the next level, gives you more healing, gives you a slight speed boost of plus 10%. It's just great. Moving on. Overflux Power Orb. Is 2.5% HP per second good? Oh, that's not good enough for you, I assume. Okay, so how about plus 25 strength? Oh, that's still not good enough. Okay, how about something that increases your mana regen by a bloody 100%, effectively making you regen your mana 2 times faster? On top of that, it lasts for 60 seconds instead of 30 seconds like the Mana Flux Orb and the Radiant Orb. It is by far very powerful, and it is also an extreme overkill as compared to the other tier 4 bosses at the moment. You can kill it. You can kill any tier 4 bosses with just a Radiant Orb. A Mana Flux Power Orb is an overkill. An Overflux Power Orb is an extreme overkill, okay? It's that good, but it's also expensive, but worth it. Last but not least, the 50 million Midas. Do I need to say more? The highest universal damage weapon in the game. Case closed. It is by far the best weapon for pure damage, but it is a purely damage focused weapon with no magic ability or synergy like the Scythe or the aspect of the dragons or the pigman sword. It may fall behind when magic damage is introduced, but it will not be forgotten as the best weapon at pure raw damage, which isn't bad by any means at all. So now that I've done ranking every single weapon, bow, power orb, and even some utility items in the game, I shall now tell you what items are worth to craft or worth to buy from the auction house. So if you are an early game player, this is what I will recommend for you to buy or to craft. I will recommend you to buy or to craft the Undead Sword, get your Rogue Sword since it's free, and buy a Silver Fang. You may also consider buying a Tactician Sword. That is also a very good choice. So consider buying an Undead Sword, or a Silver Fang or a Tactician's Sword. You may also want to consider buying an Endstone Bow for early game use, or an Ender Bow if you would like the Ender Pearl ability. It's up to you. The Ender Bow or the Endstone Bow are great early game purposes. Moving on. For mid-game use, what do you want? For mid-game use, I highly recommend the Tactician's Sword once again, but maybe put a Wood Singularity on it to get even higher damage and make it a thick Tactician's Sword. If you don't like to spend over 1 million coins to upgrade your Tacticians to a thick Tacticians, you may consider buying the Raider's Axe or the Aspect of the End. As a mid-game player, you are also not too far away from crafting the Runan's Bow, so consider investing for a Runan's Bow early on. It is the best S tier item you can get for the cheapest cost, and you can get it as soon as you reach mid-game. For end-game players, what do you want? For endgame players, you likely want the Mana Flux Power Orb or the Overflux Power Orb. You may stick with the Radiant Power Orb if you like, but that's for mid-game generally. You can upgrade it if you want, and I highly recommend upgrading to a Mana Flux Power Orb if you're in the endgame or late game. So you want the Mana Flux Power Orb or the Overflux Power Orb. You may want to consider buying a Reaper Falchion if you want to kill zombies. You may also want to consider an Aspect of the Dragons, Thick Tacticians, or a Pigman Sword. Consider Thick Tacticians if you're fine with doing less damage, but for a budgeted option. And last but not least, you may also want to consider buying a 50 million Midas, or you may just skip that entirely and just be happy with an Aspect of the Dragons. It's perfectly fine to not get a 50 mil Midas or a Reaper Scythe or even an Overflux Power Orb. These items will be useful for dungeons, don't get me wrong, but they are just a bit too expensive for the casual player to use or to even buy in the first place. So yeah, with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Consider giving this video a like and a subscribe. And with that, thank you for watching my video. Join the Discord server in the link in the description down below. And with that, it's another video done by Furball the Hammy, signing out. Thank you for watching.